What do you think I'd be willing to do for him? Do you think that it's about return for me? Or do you think I'm like, you need $1 million? It can be. I'm just using that as one example. There's all sorts of examples that have nothing to do with that. I'm just using that as, if somebody did the discovery process with me and understood what I care about, they'll find out that I'm really into mountain biking or blah, blah, blah. So there's things I'm willing to write checks for that are unique to me that have nothing to do with a return.
Right.
Like I've written checks in South America for things because I want more mountain bike trails down there.
Okay, that makes sense.
When I'm down there, I want to be able to ride a bike. Cool. And it puts these guys to work. It creates an income for them. It helps the bike shops. It goes into the economy. Cool.
And I'll say really quick, a lot of that is relationship.
All
Not
of it,
money,
all
it's
of it,
relation.
all
I
of
mean,
it
it is.
relationship.
But and non-traditionally, it's more about relationship. And that accelerates you a lot faster in that process than it does just, here's my pitch, here's what I can give you, here's the numbers. It's relationship that accelerates a whole lot faster. So go ahead.
Hi, I have a startup here called City Farmery, and I'm interested in understanding the local investor community.
Mm-hmm.
You asked what kinds of questions people have. That's what I'd like to understand on these shared outcomes for food security, being able to sustainably and create and reduce food deserts here in Las Vegas. So if you can address that, that would be great.
Great. Whoever else has a question, be ready with it. Go for it.
So I'll take a stab at it this way. How much research do you know about those in your community here that are doing things to impact that specific area? And the reason why I ask that question is a lot of times they say, well, who are the investors? Well, who are the people that are moving the money already here that you can actually, what is that research? A lot of times we look for the check, and you haven't done the relationship building. Who's
moving that direction already?
Because you can get on the train and someone is, and they're like, oh, you can help me achieve that. Absolutely, I'll fund that because you're helping me accelerate that faster than if I were doing it by myself. But you don't get that out just looking at who's the investor. It's looking at who's doing the work that you're interested in going. It's go to market. Who's already in the market or in a similar market moving in that direction? Where's that money going and how do you achieve and get there?
Match the investor to the capital type.
Yep.
Most of you guys don't know what I mean. Capital types are very varied, and we're going to get in a second. What was your question?
I actually have a startup for food tech, for meat alternatives. We definitely need to connect to see how can we
There you go.
help
Synchronicity. Awesome.
do that. And I wanted to ask a
Yeah.
question as far as capital goes. Is there any way to see if it's going more to tech, more to food tech, more to bio? Like, how can I identify my specific area
Why do you need money?
to actually start to produce the product here in Vegas and to have it locally made?
How much traction are you gaining already? Or where is the traction coming from? Is it on the tech side? Is it on the food sector side? Where is the traction that you can get before you try to go get someone else's money? Because the thing about it is the more money you get outside of yours, there's more debt and there's more strings attached to it, right? That means that they may take that in a different direction than you want to go as a founder. How much can you do on your own? Not necessarily saying bootstrapping, but how much can you do non-traditionally? And that's traction. How much traction can you get before you just, hey, I want to go get money, right?
So that's exactly what's my strategy. I built everything for about 2 years, everything by myself. I wanted to come to my fundraising when all pieces are ready to go. And
Yep.
then to have a solid plan, we already have pipeline of clients, we have the formulas, we have the marketing plan, the strategy, everything is ready to go. Because I knew that the money would be a little bit more difficult to get.
Through that journey, what relationships have you built? And that's the other thing about the traction. There should be relationships built along the way with your traction that when you arrive at that point of, hey, I need a fundraise, it's not you're brand new to the scene. You already built those relationships.
I wanted to update you that this has happened since we last spoke, letting you know that we actually are moving forward all the time. That gets investors' attention really, really quick. For all the know-it-alls that are in the room that have been here the last couple of times, there's 30 distinct plus types of capital out there. How many of you guys from last time can remember what the 4 macro capital types are, though? If we were to break them into 4 basic silos. Anybody want to take a stab at it from last time? Okay. First is public and gov funds. This is anything that started with our taxpayer money. There's a huge breakdown list of all the different capital types, even under that one subgroup. There is no perfect capital type. And actually, instead of just chasing after one type of capital, a really smart fundraising fluent entrepreneur that understands the capital spectrum is able to go after multiple capital types. And we're going to get into that and make that real for you guys here in a bit. So again, first is public and gov funds. And believe me, there's just as many strings and hoops to jump through as you might feel like a VC is going to put you through, when it comes to that. But just understand the startups are regional. So anybody that's going to help give you money, region matters a great deal when you're going out to do your fundraise. So think about that. Number 2 is debt. We all know what debt is. You're going to get a loan. You're going to pay it back. There's 4 major types of debt. It's underwritten based on the collateral that you have, which would be real estate and equipment. Number 2 would be it's underwritten based on the contract you have. This is accounts receivable and purchase order financing. I've done all of these extensively. Third is cash flow. Show me that you have an ability. Nice to see you, Cindy. Show me that you have an ability to repay based on the cash flow that you're generating in your business or personally in your W-2. That's where most of the innovation has happened in the funding space. So when these lenders say to you, hey, we do non-dilutive funding, well, of course it's non-dilutive. It's a freaking loan, right? And they're going to use your revenue to give you a loan. And then fourth is credit. These are the 4 C's of debt funding. Credit is we're going to use your personal credit to underwrite you. Mm-hmm. I was one of the guys that helped to bring this to the market many years ago. We have funded an untold amount of startups that are pre-revenue based on their credit. But no capital type is perfect. It's still a loan. You still have to manage that relationship. And if you do it well, you have this relationship where they're continually willing to up and extend more and more credit because you're a known entity to them. Okay, third bucket. This is the equity bucket. This is the bucket that most of you guys spend your time thinking about as a startup. Now, if you're a small business owner, you should probably not be thinking about this bucket. But if you're a startup where you really believe you're building something that has enterprise value, then you're going to be going after angel investors, VCs, and some of the other groups where you're exchanging equity. It's a partnership, right? So that's the one that everybody thinks about the most. The one I want you to spend the most time thinking about from now on is revenue. Now you're like, Kurt, I know what revenue is. It means I got to get money into my business, okay? Yes, I'm saying have your customers finance your business. Shocker. And in this current market, you must have even more revenue or closer to revenue for any venture person to want to fund you. But that's not what I'm talking about by revenue. When I say the term raised revenue, I'm talking about a concept of this idea that there are groups out there that will fund you, and they will fund you not equity and not debt. Mm-hmm. When they give you money, it's not equity, it's not debt. If it's not equity and it's not debt, what is it? It's revenue into the business. Yeah. And when I'm talking about numbers that are large enough, 300 grand, 500 grand, $1 million, $5 million. How much of this would be valuable to you guys if you could pull down this type of capital? Very valuable? Okay. So who are the players that do this? The Fortune 2000. Almost every single Fortune 2000 will allocate money backdoor to companies, and you'll never hear about it. This man worked at Zappos for many, many years, just retired. He's going to be one of the champions fighting to make sure we build an amazing urban core with lots of opportunity for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tell me the Zappos didn't fund the crap out of all sorts of fun stuff. You were the chief fun officer. So the idea is that if you find a Tony, and we all kind of know Tony's story, he created a bunch of money. He was a founder funder. And through the wealth he created, he said, I want to spread this around. I want to create opportunity for everybody else. I want to find people that are obsessed with the problem in the world they want to solve, and I will fund them. And yes, sometimes those came with terms that were venture terms. And sometimes they came with terms that are more like the sponsored capital thing I'm talking about. Am I right, Tyler? Great.
You always, like if you're investing in a bunch of restaurants, you still go bring your friends there, you buy the meals, you create a lot of opportunity by moving your company down here and spreading that wealth around.
Ecosystem.
So when you think of your alternative raise, I want you guys to be thinking about this. This is where this Who's Got My Money post really comes in, is that there's huge quantities of capital. You can't even wrap your head around. It's over $1 trillion, guys. $1 trillion. It is many, many times the size of traditional venture capital, and everyone's chasing after this 3%. So the fourth bucket is revenue. And that's this main space I want you to kind of really be thinking through as you're going to do your raise.
Can you give some concrete examples?
Sure. Ian, you want to come down here, buddy? Yeah, come have a seat.
Sure.
This is my buddy Ian Utilli. He's going to be here tonight at Venture House. Come have a seat. Ian, tell us a little bit about your background, buddy. Real quick.
I've co-founded 8 companies. They're not all tech companies, but obviously those are easier to scale. Have exits, sponsored revenue has been the primary way that I've funded my companies. I haven't raised money. So the way that I've structured is get large enterprise deals, and I make it make sense for that massive enterprise so I can close a 6 or 7 figure agreement. It is structured in a way that is a win-win for that large enterprise as well as our startup. And this allows us to not be in debt. It allows us to basically have our customer that benefits most from the product we're creating to be the one that actually funds our company without us also not being in debt, but also not giving up equity unless we work out some sort of agreement that would make sense in that regard. But that's maybe what you want me to touch on?
All right, you guys ready to go through his raise? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Current raise. Okay, I just got to know this guy. I want to tell you about the technology he's building and he's bringing to Vegas. I've been nudging him to move his new operation, his new company here to Vegas, and I think that that's going to happen. This is Landrew. Everybody say hi to Landrew. Hi, Landrew. I want you guys to wrap your arms around this guy and make sure he feels welcome in our community so
Yes,
that we
please.
see these type of companies come here and want a headquarter here. He's the CTO. All right, so Ian and I met through a very, very trusted friend.
Yes.
She believed in you very much and believes that you're building a $1 billion company. So the cliff notes on this is that you're building Attention Live,
Yeah.
Attention Live. And what Attention Live does, one of the things that it does is it takes your podcast and it auto syndicates to all the places that you would need to upload your podcast to, all in real time. Already built, already done.
Right.
Awesome. It also mints a copy on the blockchain, an NFT, so that you're live, which allows the community to now share in the sharing of that and the upside of what's created as a result of that.
Right.
Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay. And then there's going to be some distribution behind that, and we'll get into all that. Okay. So I'm building a software platform to do what we're about to go through, this process where I'm underwriting him using my brain, using the understanding that we've had from our team going out and understanding all these different capital types and understanding what somebody can qualify for. When most people go to raise money, they're singularly only thinking about, I need capital, I don't care where I get it from, but they don't realize there's different capital types and different parameters and opportunities that come with each. So when I spoke with Ian, I basically underwrit him over the phone and said, okay, I see 3 very clear paths of capital raising available to you right now.
Right.
So we're going to go through those. He's going to be open and he's going to share what's happening under the hood of his business, which is really freaking cool.
Yeah.
So definitely give him a round of applause for that. All right. So when I met Ian, he had plans. So I'm not saying this was all because of our conversation, but you were going to do a traditional raise and you were going to do about $1.5 million.
Right.
Right? Based on the fact that he's created NFT New York City and all these other things, we've both felt strongly that that was something that you could do relatively easily. And he was
Right.
going to do so with no cap, which means that he's not as tied into the, how do I want to explain this? Not as tied into, it doesn't create a limiter, a glass ceiling for him when it comes to that raise.
Right.
Let's just pretend this raise that he was going to do had a cap. And let's pretend that Jessica, who's our mutual friend, because she said, Kurt, this is going to be $1 billion company. So I ran you through some math. I said, with a cap, $1.5 million is worth effectively, for 10% of equity in the company, we're talking about giving away $100 million over the next couple of years for this $1.5 million. Is it really worth that when we have these other buckets in my mind? I'm excited for him, saying we've got these other capital types that we can go do. And he goes, oh, there's no cap. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So bucket 1 is we're going to do a traditional raise, and we're going to go after the relationships that he has. Awesome. Now here's where it gets more exciting. He also has a really large following. Not everybody does. The dirty secret of crowdfunding is you got to have a crowd. It's largely a marketing exercise,
Yep.
and you do have to have some money in the can to put up front to do the messaging and to test the audiences and to warm up the funnel and to really do the push. At the last Venture House event, the last Built By event, you flew out. We had the largest crowdfunder in the world fly out.
That's right.
Ben from Dealmaker came out. We sat down, and he was like, Kurt, this is very likely an 8-figure raise
Right.
off of
Right.
crowdfunding. Now again, crowdfunding is not an option for everybody, but it's absolutely an option for him, and I think they're going to smash it. So that's number 2. Now again, capital sequencing is what capital am I using, when, and from whom over time in a sequence. But capital sequencing also means if you can play all 3 cards right now, why not play them?
Yeah.
So then the third one, and this is the really sexy one, and you may not know this, but Ian has been quietly serving some of the largest church organizations on earth for many, many years and never with an ask. Quietly serving, and they're building these massive audiences. So when I said to him this next thing, not only did he immediately understand what I was suggesting, he was confident enough to be able to go and do it without much explanation. I said, I'm going to ask you to go to one of these churches and ask them for money for nothing. Give me money. Give me money for my company. No equity, no debt. Write me a check for 600 grand plus into my company. And what was your response?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it has to make sense for the organization. So in this case, we're talking about churches, right? So I'll give you an example. There is an organization out of Oklahoma, and they start an app called the YouVersion app, where they own Bible.com. So I've been working with them, I don't know, probably 13, 14 years. They had maybe 1 million users. Now they have over 600,000 users. So as I've kind of...
600 million.
600 million users, that's right. So as I've kind of danced the dance with their team, working on different projects, as you mentioned, I never had an ask, but I've always kept them like informed. Hey, because Landry and I think this is our 6th company we've done together in the last 16 years. And so Landry and I, we've worked on lots of things for this one specific organization, and it's one of many. And so in their case, it makes sense that they would want our product to exist. Why? Because their core organization and all the organizations around them is basically faith-oriented content creators with baked-in, engaged audiences that is constantly creating content on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, physically and digitally. We created automation leveraging blockchain and AI technology to serve this type of client. So for them, they want and need our specific product to exist. And so sponsored capital is going to them and saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we customized what we're walking into? We have a built product, but what comes of this around your specific needs, here's our specific need. Here's what we need to scale to become a billion-dollar company, or more importantly, to have millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of users. Here's what we need as a startup organization. They can come to the table, provide capital potentially for us, and we can then come to the table and customize our specific product, platform, tech stack against their individual needs and give them a massive advantage, not just a competitive advantage, but an in-house advantage where they can kind of watch the pace of everything. So regardless of what I structure with them, if anything, or another organization like theirs, and whether it's in the faith space or I do it in another industry, it doesn't matter what the end result is in terms of who I do it with. What matters is the creativity by which we invite capital into our company so that we can execute against our goals without having to go to VCs or even family offices or private equity firms, which often come with a very different type of relationship where their end result is a ROI on the capital given, which oftentimes is 3 or even 30x because they make so many risky infusions of capital, and they deploy capital to companies hoping for that type of return, which is why I never raised money. Because I always felt like it was a lot easier for me just to go and make a case against a massive enterprise and say, if you become one of our founding alpha clients, or if you help us decide how we're going to get to the end result, your win is that our product will be as though it was built inside your company.
Shared outcome.
That's right. It's a shared outcome.
Raised revenue.
So I'll pause for a second. How many of y'all understand what he's saying? Like you see that path of getting there, right? So it's the traction, the relationship that took him there, but it's also the work he was doing along the way, helping someone else achieve and get to where they want to go. And he's actually exponentially getting there faster and getting them where they want to go.
And he brought them value first. He brought them value first. He brought them value first. For all the founders that are messaging me on LinkedIn saying, introduce me to an angel investor. And I'm like, why? You don't even understand how capital stacking works.
Right.
You don't even understand the conversation. You don't understand the approach. You don't understand the discovery process. Discovery is to say, what is important to you so I know how to create a shared outcome that you will stroke a check for.
Yeah.
Super important to understand. Does it take time? Yes. Is it a little complicated and different from what you understand? Yes. Is it hard to wrap your head around? Yes. That's the reason I'm building the damn funding platform for it. To automate that entire process. Go for it quickly.
You said it took you 16 years to build that relationship, to be able, until they did the revenue?
That's a fair question. I've been 16 years with Landrew. I worked with them probably 13, so pretty close to what you had heard. And have been working with them because I like what they do. Like, I like the fact that one of the fastest growing, most effective tech platforms in the world is based around what many people would call sacred scriptures, and I like that. So I have enjoyed working with them and collaborating with them in the NFL and them in this organization, that organization. I have done different projects with them, but I've never come to them and said, hey, we, Lander and I and our team, have gotten this specific product to a point that it is ready to scale across your core organization. I think it would be in your best interest to lean in with me. And so, not because I had to wait, but because I am very protective of my network that is extremely precious to me. And I have chosen, even maybe not wisely, not to capitalize on my relationships, because my relationships are more important than the end result they might get me to.
So 2 points, 60 days to a year for this process on average, okay? Second thing, there's a human being making a decision to write you a check. There is no algorithm, there is no AI. We're not there yet, we won't be there anytime soon, not for massive checks. Right. So just understand that there is a human being deciding on you or you or you if they're gonna write you a check. And with sponsored capital, you got to think really outside of the box, because it will blow your mind. I've got organizations that have written checks for $650 million to see more female founders get access to capital.
Right.
So let's move on. Ian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, can
Appreciate
you pass
it.
your mics over to the birthday girl? Get up here.
The birthday girl.
Did you have something you want to share real quick?
Okay, didn't know I was talking today. Thanks.
Well, it's relationship.
Have a seat.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But he said 60 to.
She's got him. Eric, she's got him. Oh.
We're double micing people today. It's important. You're important for this.
Thank you.
Y'all should listen to this lady. She knows what she's saying. But I say this really quickly. It is relationship. And sometimes you don't have 20 years into a space and you want to try to solve it. But you know someone that does. Whenever you reach out to someone, start value first. Relates, like, would you go and ask someone on the side of the street, hey, can you give me something? Or would you say, hey, how can I help you? Why would you think money would be any different? You're still, at the end of the day, whoever writes that check is a human, not an algorithm, right? They may have specifications they want, but they're still human. And if we capitalize on the human capital of who they are first, and you do that connection first, not for what you want, but what you can give, it makes that relationship go a lot faster. And I can tell you that for someone that, yeah, it works a lot easier that way. I can trust you. Tell me that. Yeah.
All right, so this is Cindy Birkland.
Hi, good morning.
And Cindy's like all of us. She's obsessed. She's obsessed with startups because it's her birthday, and here she is.
Right.
And look at these fabulous shoes. Gotta love that. So Cindy's a 25-plus year finance veteran, right? Okay, with 30?
Maybe 30.
Okay,
Close
30,
to
great. And now, for the first time, heavily getting involved in venture capital over the last while.
Yeah.
And working with a challenging venture capital partner, right? Mm-hmm. So she's partners in it with the venture capital firm. And what I wanted to share today is some perspectives on how you can leverage a relationship that you build with someone that's done something for a very long time, a very certain way, and get them to see different perspectives, to be more open to some of these conversations that we're having today. You know, at the end of the day, when these allocators go to do things, they're not always looking for an ROI, even though that tends to be what somebody that is a professional investor, that's what a VC is, whereas founder funders are not necessarily professional investors. So they might have these little, you know, pet projects that they're excited about funding. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the return on relationship, which I call ROR, that you can create with them and through them and with the individuals that are approaching that have solutions that they want to bring to the market. So I'd love for you to just kind of share a little bit of your experience in working with your partner, because I know it's been a learning experience for him.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's the one that's got all the B's with you guys' partnership.
Yeah, he's a bona fide billionaire. He's been in the venture capital. He was a trader by profession and used his money that he earned in his young 20s to fund a startup. That startup was called Teladoc. He took $500,000, put it into the company, and they sold for $200 million. And he's like 24 years old at this point, and was like why am I working, all day, every day, doing 200 trades a day, killing myself when I could just plunk money into these startups and make a bunch of money? And, not all of them were that successful. But, now that he's 56 years old, he's been doing this for several years. He kind of knows what he's doing. But everything with him, he has a very set way of doing things. Obviously, it's worked for him. And I come along, I've been in the industry with him, like, not even a year. But I've been in different types of lending. So I have brought different deals to him, and he's like, I would never fund this. Well, right now as we speak,
The first time that you bring it up.
Right. And I told Kurt, like, we're in conversations. I said, that was we just dipped our toe in the pool. We're just beginning with him. He goes, it was a flat out no, I would never do that. And I'm like, we'll see. So what I've had to do is, turn my skin inside out and like go, okay, what is he looking for? Why is he looking for it? So just to talk a little bit about the project that I have him doing right now that he said he would never in a million years do. He's actually funding 12 high-end parties. Like rockin' parties, like EDM parties. And he was like, why would I do this? Well, the parties are gonna lead up to an NFT mint, which will earn us about $40 million. However, this is a very, very risky thing. Like you're putting your faith in the person that's going to mint the NFT. But he didn't understand why we're doing this. This is about, really about humanity. And why the parties are happening is to celebrate people and to love on people and to have them know that they matter. And if you understand the celebrity, what he wants, he really wants people to have a better access to God through us. So basically, last night on the phone, when he was like, I don't understand why nobody's charging. This budget doesn't make sense. There's not any fees in here for attorneys. There's not any fees for CPAs. Why isn't this in the budget? And I go, well, they're not charging for their fees. And he's like, this just doesn't make any sense. And I go, would you like to know why they're doing this? And he goes, yeah. So I literally got out our goals, and when I started the meeting with all of us as a collective, him not being in the first meeting, I had everybody give 2 goals, like why would this happen? What would bring us success? If you had 2 goals that could happen out of these 12 parties, what would happen? Well, my celebrity was like, hey, I want to make my friends a lot of money, and I want more people to know God. And my goals were, I want more people to know God and I want to make my friends a lot of money. And then the CPA attorney guy was like, I want them to have their wishes come true. I want to support them in their goals. And then his goals, my VC was like, I want to make 100 times my money. I want to have access to this. I want to be the first founder in this NFT. It was all about money, right?
That's not how all VCs are, guys, to be fair.
Right? But I said, I'm going to just go ahead when he asked why people weren't charging for this budget, I sent him the goals. And he saw his goals versus all of ours. And he goes, I'm not lying.
Well done.
I'm not lying.
Well played.
And he goes, I would like to change my goals. I'm not kidding. This happened last night. We haven't had a conversation yet about this. And he goes, so this is more of a humanity thing. And I go, yeah, we're just asking you to put up your money to save human life, And he was like, well, you don't know. I spend about 100 hours a year at Habitat for Humanity, and I do all these things. And I'm like, so this is right up your alley. And he was like,
nice redirect.
Yeah, it is. But here's what else I did. I said, what if I could figure out a way where instead of you putting up $3.6 million for these 12 parties, what if I could show you a way to put up $700,000? I'll redirect this money, and what I'm doing is I'm creating 60 founders into the project at $50,000 each. We'll collect $3 million in. I'm going to have him trade the money at 10% monthly. We're going to earn $300,000 per month, and these parties will be free.
See how creative that is, guys? One of the things that's interesting about real estate is if you can get somebody to sell you a building for $1, you got yourself a deal. And I don't know why this level of creativity isn't like something that founders typically think of when they're going and getting their capital, but it can be just as creative. So one more thing, she's a real estate expert by background because she's done financing in the space forever. So something I'll just use to really cement this capital stack thing into your minds is you're doing a $100 million real estate property, right? If you ever hear a developer pitch a city, it's always the same thing. They'll break down the different types of capital they're bringing in, the amounts. They'll say, hey, we've got tax abatement money for this much money. We've got a mortgage that's coming in for 25 million. We've got, bond issuance here for this amount of money. And then by the time there's six or seven capital types in, then they say, and city, and here comes the ask, we would love your $13 million to round out the project in order for it to be funded. And this is how it's done. There are no exceptions, guys. Nobody, unless you're in like Saudi or something, says I'm going to spend $100 million on a property using one capital type, my own money. That's not how it's done. So what's crazy is this idea of capital stacking and capital sequencing, this is how it's done with the most world-class startups out there as well. You just don't hear about it. This is how Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston allocate capital and how they create a network effect. And this is what we're working on with partners like Tyler and some of the others behind the scenes to have Vegas be a destination that's known for capitalizing companies, whether you live here or not. Buy here, build here, fill up the jet here. You thought you came here to lose money at the casinos. We're here to help you make money, whether you live here or not. Of course, we would like you to live here, but yeah, and then you can go lose it. Right. Well said, Josh.
So one thing about that I also want to say for most founders, there's a lot of us that aren't aiming to hit that $100 million ARR, et cetera. This still works. This still works. Even if you're at $30 million, $60 million, $100 million company, this still works, even if you're not trying to get to that big VC fundable company. It's still relationships, it's still capital sequencing, and it's still understanding how do you get sponsor capital in to move your vision and help the person that you're trying to impact along the way. So it's not just for certain types of companies. It works across the board. I got one, I've done it before, and even with the real estate side, I've done that in Seattle as well. It works. It works if you want to know how to use it and know how to actually move that thing along. This actually works really well.
And sometimes the capital isn't the capital you think it is. Maybe you come to Josh at Big TV and you find out about Project 1000 and you realize that their whole obsession is helping startups to understand how did we decode the tech that we need to build. Maybe what we need is something that's going to take 2 weeks and it's so cheap that anybody could afford it. Maybe that's the MVP that you're looking for. Then you go raise on it. We're not saying that sponsor capital is the answer. We're saying it's part of the answer. It's one of the things in the stack. Go ahead, Josh.
To build on what Eric was saying there too, you might hear these big numbers. So I grew up a poor kid in a poor town. My first job was making less than $5 an hour doing manual labor. These relationship skills work with people that have $1,000. It works with people that have $10,000. It works with people who want to see your project succeed because they want to have their lawn mowed, because they like the food, they want a better supply. Costa Taverna or Taverna Costa, whatever which one it is, my apologies. They do a lot to support startups. They carry startup products on their shelves, they host startup events. These aren't the $100 million checks, but if you're building something, especially from small, go for the basics, and build the relationships. The other thing is the exact same relationship skills you use to build with anyone, work on rich people.
Guess what, guys? This is happening in real time with Cindy and her partner. He respected her because of her rich background in finance. She has showed up day in and day out for many, many years. She understands many facets of insurance, real estate, from a commercial side, a residential side. She's done that, and she's done very, very well with that. It is her way of being, which is something I want to talk about real quick, that is shifting this relationship to now where he's thinking differently about the way they're going to allocate together as partners. Listen to what I just said. It is her way of being. So the number one thing keeping you from capital is you. It's the way you show up. Are you somebody that other people buy what you believe? As Simon Sinek says, they don't buy what you do, they buy what you believe. When you say something, does a funder say, I believe that that's the person that's going to get the ball in the end zone. I believe that this person, come hell or high water, is going to get it done no matter what it is. What is that way of being? Eric and I see several hundred pitches a week. And I can tell you there are founders that don't know their material. They haven't taken the time to do this 100 first tries thing, which is me saying, look, I can tell if you've talked to 100 clients or not. I know that you know your stuff, or I can tell that you don't. If you're reading your presentation off of your deck, you don't know your material. So it's your way of being that really matters. Do you have a plan? Are you prepared? Do you show up? Do you do the inner work, the self-work that's going to be required to go the distance? And I would suggest to you guys that the reason why Cindy is kicking ass in creating all sorts of things is because she's learned how to do creative deals. She's done the work. Her and I have done some really cool, really difficult, work that we really believe in, and I have no doubt that it's going to be shifting the way that her partner really looks and receives things. At the end of the day, funders buy founders, and I don't mean physically buy them, own them. I mean, just for those that need the clarification of context, they buy you.
Yeah,
They're saying, is this the jockey that I'm willing to bet on? Only every single time. Can this person go out and raise more capital? Can this person market and sell to get clients and acquire clients? Can this person recruit the best people in the world to come be a part of that team? Because teams are what win championships and make sure the ball always ends up in the end zone. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
Wow.
Or questions maybe that are very direct that you guys have about the process, not so much about what they invest in or anything like that.
Sure.
As a young 20-something who doesn't know how to build relationships as such, how do you develop those relational skills?
Well, for me, I just want to show up that I care about you and that you matter. And for me, I think the following that I have with social media and with the clients that I have is because they're treated like they're my number one person, that their success comes first over anything else before money. I never lead with money or anything. It's like, how can I support you? What do you need from me today? When people come to my networking events, I always ask them, tell us in 10 seconds, what is your ask? I have 50 business owners here. What can we do to support you and have your business win? So when you show up that person is first and you genuinely mean it, like for me, I love humanity. I want everybody that I know to win. And when that shows through authentically, it's just going to happen automatically. You can't fake caring about somebody. And if you truly start understanding that the person in front of you needs to be the only person, and like when they're there with you, have them be the only person and really find out who they are and what makes them tick. I know my VC very, very well. I had a great friend help me with him because I'm like, he has so much money. It's in the billions. He'll never need to work again, but he works like a nut and he's sacrificing his health. And my best friend helped me understand, never ask him to quit working so much, because if you understand why he's truly working, he's working to help other people. He gives his money to help other people. It's just, he's still got that business hat on that it better make me money. We have to understand that the underlying reason he's doing this is to help others.
Play the long game, guys. A relationship that says no is a not right now. If you give them updates, founder updates, then maybe they become somebody, or maybe they are a conduit to other relationships. I've always said that the best thing that can come from a funder, whether they fund you or not, is for them to daisy chain you to the next capital situation, or different types of capital, whether it's, I'm going to help you with the right team. That's the number one thing that makes companies successful, is the team. Or I'm going to help you with your data leg, which is all of the clients and customers and channel partnerships and contracts that can help to capitalize the company. So guys, play the long game, for crying out loud. These founders that go around thinking that, oh, this person's not useful to me, they're not paying attention. The average time to exit is 10 or 11 years, and most people never do ever exit. The goal is not to exit. The goal is to add value. To add value. And if you want to do that to a marketplace, you should sure as hell care about those that are helping you to get there.
The one thing, I'll go in this direction really quick. Work on you. Like, if you want to start anywhere, work on you. Look in the mirror first. Know who you are, and connect with the people that are around you. And if you do that well, you will find yourself pulling more and more people in easily. It's not a lot of hard work, but a lot of times we forget the us, and we just try to go out to the other person, and people can see through a lot of that.
They can tell if you don't have posture. They can tell if you don't believe. They see it in your eyes. Can we move on real quick? Sammy, go for it.
Yeah, I would love to know.
Sorry, tight on time.
Could you tell us about someone that really impressed you with how they built a relationship with you?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, so someone that really impressed me and how they built a relationship with me? Well, I would say, I bring it back to my VC right now. I had never met somebody with so much money, and he's nuts. They call him a baby gorilla. He's crazy, and he has such a sense of humor, and I'm like, this guy is bananas. But how do you be so crazy and have all this, he was just very normal but very crazy. And I'm like, I really need somebody like this in my life because I know I could learn from him. I'm always looking for people that I can learn from, and I've had a lot of successes in my life, and I'm always looking for somebody like, ooh, that I need. I'm going to tuck that away. And I knew that he could really, really help me. And what I've always found about people is that most people, if you ask them to support you and help you, they will. They're flattered by that, or they want to help you. If you don't ask, you don't know. If they tell you no, that's one thing. But I really asked him to support me, and I said I could really learn from you. And he's seen that I am good seed. When he invests in me, I bring a lot of fruit.
But do your homework. Don't show up and talk to an author where you haven't read their book. Don't go to somebody that's writing about capital every single day on their LinkedIn and not read any of it and then ask questions that show that you're not paying attention. That's indicative of like not really caring about the relationship. People do this all the time. They ask a bunch of questions and I'm like, you're not reading, clearly. Let's have a more targeted conversation because you come prepared. And then now I'm impressed. Now I'm like, okay, you're the one I'm willing to spend time out of everybody that's hitting me up saying, hey, I need help with my deal.
I'll wrap this in on another side of it is pay attention to the person. Please pay attention, read the room, get your EQ up. Please, it makes a lot of difference. Like if you just come for the thing that they do and you miss the person that's in front of you doing the thing that they do, they read through it. It matters. We actually did that last night. It matters a lot. And I met Cindy how long ago?
Yes, was it yesterday?
2 days ago?
Yeah.
It matters a lot. It's relationship. It's people.
I took him to meet about 30 of my friends last night at a party.
And that wouldn't happen if there wasn't relationship capital. Go for it.
So if you are in a room with all executives from all disciplines, and this is first time you meet them, what would you do?
Always seek to add value to them first. Find out what they care about in conversation. Do it quickly and be somebody that's always of value to where it emanates from you. Somebody can tell if you're service-oriented first. You're not there to talk about yourself. You're there to be interested so that they find you interesting.
The other thing, in a room full of executives, first of all, it's a room full of people who just happen to be executives. But the context, so understanding the context of why you're there. If you're there for business, then obviously show up to actually have business mind, be very precise, and get to the point, but also add value. But at the end of the day, you're still working with people. There's still people, they do a thing, they have a hat on, etc. But there's still people. We gloss over that for some reason. We're in a room with people that have billions of dollars, millions of dollars, done lots of things. But Ian is still a person. What's good? Like he rides a one wheel. Like we connected over that. Like how cool is that? Now I'm in because I know and understand something, and I learned that just by accident. But I wasn't, hey, you've done this, can you help me out? Or how do I help you in your business? I don't even know what business he does, right? So I met him, we were just chit-chatting about stuff. Hey, you want to jump on a one wheel? Absolutely. I'm afraid to hurt myself though. He was like, you got this. But it's human. We're humans first. And that builds that relationship and takes you on.
So we don't have a lot of time left, guys, so I want to switch gears real quick. I want to talk about what's unique about each and every one of you and how you can leverage that for raising or for attracting resources. So there is a lot of conversation around DEI lately, diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you're a veteran, if you come from a certain walk of life, if let's say you're in the cannabis space, use that as your advantage. So that's something I kind of want to talk about real quick if you guys have any questions. But whatever your hand is, whatever it is that is unique about you, you need to play on that because there's nothing you can do to change it, right? So for example, if I'm in cannabis, I'm going to know that a lot of groups won't fund me, but I'm going to know that the right groups will. And so I'm going to double down on that. And I'm going to learn every single thing I can about somebody that's allocating capital from cannabis, how they think, what they smell, what kind of cars they drive. Understand it inside and freaking out to know what motivates them so you know the audience. You know how to speak the language that makes sense for them. Yes, there's a challenge with access to capital if you happen to be from certain backgrounds. But you also can leverage that background as a woman, as a vet, as a minority to go after the groups that are willing to do that and have that be part of your message and your story and to play on that strength. It's something that's unique about you. There's places you can go that I can't go. I come into, Tyler's got kind of a man cave at his place. It's pretty cool. How many of you guys have an axe throwing, setup in your backyard? That's how this guy likes to cool off. Anyway, so I go in this spot that he's got, which is pretty rad. He built it with his own hands. And I immediately saw how incredibly unique an individual Tyler is. If you pay attention to individuals, You learn what's super unique about them. You can find what's win-win. So now at the end of this, I want to turn this back into you guys, focus on you guys. What is unique about what you're doing, or even where you're at in your journey? Maybe the answer is, I'm not experienced, I'm not advanced. And you're willing to lead with that and be honest. VCs like to challenge other VCs. I was on the phone with hers, and I was the one presenting, so it was his chance to grill me. And he pushed hard. She was embarrassed. I wasn't,
just like,
because I was prepared.
I'm so sorry.
I was prepared. I knew it was up. I'm like, I've spoken to plenty of really large groups. I knew my stuff. That only happens if you really know the audience, you really know your stuff, you're really prepared.
He was the first one. I just want to say I've thrown a lot of people in front of my VC, and Kurt was just cool like ice. Just every question, it's like he would just stick him with a knife, and he was just chill about it. Like he did not get rattled at all. He knew what he was talking about, and I was like, oh my God, he is not offended by that comment. I would be so pissed off right now, you know. And it was like, when we hung up, I called Kurt and I'm like, bro, you are amazing. You're like ice. And he was like, I know my stuff. I don't get offended at the questions he's asking, you know, and that's just it. It's neutral. It shouldn't be emotional. This is what he wants. This is what I want. I couldn't give him what he wanted in this time. But I told him, this is a no for now. Because when he sees me out playing with Kurt all the time, like, what are you doing? I'm with Kurt. I'm at Venture House. Well, what's that? And I'm going to keep bringing him back around, we're not done.
Sometimes an allocator doesn't understand what's in it for them. Sometimes they're looking at a certain way. He
saw one side.
He agreed with my thesis, but what he didn't realize is the upside for him if we chose to partner together. I'm not interested in a one-sided relationship. I only bring partnerships to the table where we both win together. And that's how you guys got to be thinking about this when it comes to the allocators that are giving you money. Because you want somebody that's a champion in your corner that says, holy crap, I gave them a bunch of money. This is awesome. I'm excited that I gave them a bunch of money to fund their company, and I'm so excited for them to win, and I'm going to pull out all the stops. If capital is the only reason you're working with somebody, it's a bad relationship and partnership for you, because they need to be bringing more to the table than that. Somebody that's been allocating for a long time has deep networks and connections and relationships from all the at-bats.
The one thing when you said focus on you, the thing that makes you unique and different, because sometimes we see a problem, we take a problem or an idea, we try to solve it because we think there's a lot of money tied to it. And it's not something that you may uniquely be able to actually bring to market. But when you actually get something that's core to you, something that you actually can flow in, connecting to other people that are doing the same, where they say, yeah, you're the jockey that can pull that off, or you're the guy that can run through the touchdown. Like, when you get to that point, it's playing to your strength. Being a founder is hard as it is, but doing it outside of a lane that you can play well in makes it that much harder. And so when you understand that, sometimes the problems that you want aren't tied to, or shouldn't be tied to, the dollar sign, but the impact and why you're doing it. And when that's core, people can't take that away from you. And those that see that, be like, I know he has it, I'll believe in it, I'll fund him, or I'll help him do that. And that's what you want to bring, and that's what community also helps you build as well. What is that why? How do you bring that why out, present that, and then also, how do you carry that through your journey?
That's the reason we believe in community. Capital doesn't solve all problems. You know, community can create a sense of belonging, a sense of belief, because we're all freaking crazy if we're in this room right now, right? We're creating something that started in the mind that nobody else sees. Only entrepreneurs really understand that. Sometimes even small business owners don't think like that. It's a very unique breed. So that's the reason why community is so important. Okay, guys, we got to wrap it up here very soon. What questions do you guys have in closing? Any quick, targeted questions that you guys have?
What's the best advice you have for asking people questions that help them build that relationship we're talking about? There's so many books. Well, just so, like, to build a relationship with folks, usually you need some sort of an icebreaker.
I think the greatest book of all time on this topic, I've read it 35 times. The pages are just, I've written in it, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. 50, 60, 70% of the stuff you guys are going to say, I know, but here's the key. It's not what we know, it's what we live that creates the impact. It's not what we know, what we live. When I went through my transformational experience and went through transformational training, I had to humble myself because I was like, look, there's what I know and there's what I'm actually acting on. There's the way I'm actually showing up, and what's the difference? What's in that gap? So there's what you know and there's what you live. So when I reread Dale Carnegie's book, I get to say, well, at what level am I living this particular principle? How much effort am I putting into that? right?
Kurt, what can we do for you specifically? How can the community show up for you?
Sure. Guys, we have a very, very, very unique opportunity as a team, as a group, as a community to band together to build something very special. The world already knows about Vegas. They think they know Vegas. They do not. They know the Strip. They know the excess in the entertainment, and we deserve that. We're awesome at that. Nobody throws a party like Vegas does. You want to know what else we do better than anyone else on earth? We bring people together. This is the best host city in the entire world. And so we need to be working more closely together. No backfighting, no whatever behind the scenes, working together. We're too small to be having that happening. We've got markets like Salt Lake and Vegas and Phoenix that are doing a lot of things that we could be emulating, but we could be doing things in the way that we can uniquely do them. One of the things I'll say is that we have 50 million plus people that come here on a yearly basis, and half of them come for commerce. Half of them come to consummate business. How much time are you spending to reach out to them to find mutually beneficial opportunities? How much time are you spending in the lobbies with the heads of state of each of these industries that come here once a year to build a relationship that's valuable to you and to them? I've spent the last 12 years in these lobbies. I know the kinds of and the quality of the people that come here, and they don't know what Vegas has to offer. And I would like us to show them. That's the reason why we've started projects like Built By. That's the reason why we've communities like Built By, and that's the reason why we built the Venture House Network, where we're starting to take down these properties that we're going to offer co-ownership in for a portion of that. And we're working on DAO setups where we can have voting and follow up and follow through, be tokenized and incentivized. But let's have conversation. Let's talk about what's working in your project, what's not working, and what do those resources look like. All resources are allocated through relationships first, so let's really look at that. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much. I lived in the San Francisco area for 8 years. 100% I agree with what you said. Never, I came here because of a childhood friends. Moved here 2 years ago. It's my first startup. And in the last 2 years, I caused 3 of my LA and San Francisco friends with family to move here. I was amazed, because for me, Las Vegas was just a Strip. And COVID hit, I had 4 kids, I'm moving. And I was amazed by the things that Las Vegas can give me.
Yeah.
I started a Women in Tech group. I started Young Entrepreneurship group. It's my first time here. Never knew it existed. I'm so thrilled. And another thing that I want to say is that I was really involved in the Silicon Valley thing. And what just happened, it was one of the best lectures I've never been in. And I think San Francisco area has to learn a lot from you guys, because there is either 1 or 0 there. There is no middle.
If you're the kind of,
go
ahead.
You just presented, it's the middle.
If,
and I love that.
If you're the kind of person that wants to sit there and say, people just need to help me, first of all, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur in the first place. But second of all, if you're the kind of person that recognizes that we have a blank canvas here, where you can be a significant part of the gravity that we are moving towards. Guys, F1's coming, the Sphere's coming, the Super Bowl's coming, and probably every 4 or 5 years for the next who knows when. We've got the baseball thing happening, with potentially a basketball thing. These are opportunities for you guys to leverage and be unique about what it is you bring to the table, and to get connected and to get plugged in, to have that tidal wave and to be surfing it. This is an unprecedented opportunity. There are people that come every single month to come to Vegas because they see the writing on the wall that in the next 10 years, and I'm giving us 5, we can catch up, and all of a sudden it's going to be Vegas is on the map for tech. This is the one city where everyone comes, and because of that, I think we can leverage that in ways that we never have before. And so let's have those conversations. I'm not asking you to not pay attention to your business. I'm saying do a little bit of multitasking and figure out how these pieces fit together, and have it be part of your strategy, where you're getting caught up in the current and you're part of that community that brings that all together. I don't know if that answers your question. Cool. All right, guys, we need to go do lunch. For those of you, we'll see you tonight at Venture House.